Hello, everybody, and either welcome or welcome back to my podcast. As always, if you do like this, please rate, comment, and subscribe. You can find me on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, and YouTube. So to start off this episode, I do want to go ahead and apologize for this being a little later than I had originally planned on recording and releasing this episode. I had every intention this past week of trying to get back on my regular recording schedule, which, slight programming note, that might be switching up a little bit too, but I'll figure that out and I'll let you guys know when I kind of have that all figured out. But I was planning on getting back onto my normal Thursday and Sunday recording, and, well, if you follow me on Twitter, you kind of already know what happened, but my Thursday didn't exactly go as planned. I had nice plans laid out to just have a nice day, to do my normal Thursday recording, but life decided that I would be spending my Thursday trying to find a home for a stray cat. So recording didn't happen on Thursday. I'm actually recording this on Saturday, January 12th, which obviously is later than I had intended to, but what is odd about this, even just being late about this, I'm sure at this point you've seen the title. This is about the Tucker Carlson monologue that was actually from January 2nd, but it is right now January 12th, and people are still talking about this damn monologue. It's kind of spawned this little, mini cottage industry of people making think pieces about the monologue, and then people making other think pieces rebutting the think pieces about the monologue, and people making Twitter threads about the monologue, and people making Twitter threads disputing the Twitter threads about the monologue, and it's kind of been this whole thing for the past week and a half. And it's interesting because, in and of itself, it's a Tucker Carlson monologue. He starts every show this way. I guess I don't watch Tucker Carlson's show. I don't really watch very many people's shows on a regular basis. But the reason I wanted to discuss this particular monologue, and apparently everybody else does too, is that it touches on something that I think is becoming a trend in conservatism. And this monologue kind of, I guess, crystallized it for a lot of people. And in my travels of trying to find just a video of this monologue, which, by the way, if you've ever gone on YouTube and just tried to search for a particular Tucker Carlson clip, it's hard as hell. There's so much shit on there. It's no, I don't, I just want to watch this one particular piece. Can I just find this one particular piece? I never did end up finding just a full video of the monologue. I've watched it in various sorts of drips and drabs and clips here and there. But in my travels of trying to find a video, I found where Fox News actually posted up the text of the monologue. And I've got to say, if you haven't watched it, see if you can find a whole video on it. I think I'll post my link in the show notes, and I think it actually links to the video of the whole clip. But reading it just text only, listening to this monologue is batshit enough. But if you actually just sit down and read it, this is the most insane thing I think I've seen in a long time. And I was always under the impression when Tucker Carlson or any of the Fox News, Fox Business News personalities do their opening monologues that they're scripted, or at least not, even if they're not completely scripted, they're at least, you kind of sit down, you workshop it out, you have notes, you kind of you have a certain window of time that you're working with. And I don't know what exactly happened with this monologue, because it just goes everywhere, just all over the fucking place. I don't know, it almost seems stream of consciousness, but that doesn't really make sense either. So yeah, That's what I wanted to discuss, and since I actually found full text of the full monologue, I figured, why the hell not? Let's do a deep dive on this, because everybody who's done commentary on it has done commentary on various parts of the monologue, but there's so much going on here. Like, this is just so fucking crazy that I think it deserves a full-on deep dive, front to back, on this monologue. So that's what we're going to do today. So let's go ahead and start getting into the text of the monologue. And actually, before we do that, let me go ahead and back up a second and kind of give you what seems to have set Tucker off to make this monologue. And that is Mitt Romney's op-ed for the Washington Post, which I talked about it in the last episode, and my opinion was, and still is, that it's yawn. Like, whatever, it's whatever. It just seems really boilerplate to me. It still does. Like, I don't... It's not inspiring, it's not anything, it's just whatever. Anyway, obviously Tucker did not feel the same way about this, because here is where we start with the monologue. Newly elected Utah Senator Mitt Romney kicked off 2019 with an op-ed in the Washington Post that savaged Donald Trump's character and leadership. Romney's attack and Trump's response Wednesday morning on Twitter are the latest salvos in a long-standing personal feud between the two men. It's even possible that Romney is planning on challenging Trump for the Republican nomination in 2020. We'll see. Okay, just a slight side tangent here. The people that are in the somebody's going to primary Trump camp are the same kind of people who are in the Trump is going to get impeached camp, which both groups of people are wishing for something that is never going to fucking happen. Like, it's not going to be that easy. You own him. He's yours now, Republicans. This is your president. Nobody's going to come save you. Nobody's going to primary Trump. Like, primarying a sitting president is a fool's errand, no matter what. I mean, it's just, I don't see anybody risking their career trying to primary Trump, and he's not getting impeached. It's not going to be that simple, people. He's not going away. The only way he's going away is if somebody beats him in 2020, which I'm still not seeing that happen. I'm seeing the Democratic field kind of start to firm up a little bit as to who's running, and I'm sorry, I ain't seeing it. And nobody's going to primary him from within the Republican Party. Like, that would just... No, nobody's doing that. So, please stop floating that idea. Okay, moving on. But for now, Romney's piece is fascinating on its own terms. It's well worth reading. It's a window into how the people in charge in both parties see our country. Romney's main complaint in the piece is that Donald Trump is a mercurial and divisive leader. That's true, of course. But beneath the personal slights, Romney has a policy critique of Trump. He seems genuinely angry that Trump might pull American troops out of the Syrian civil war. Romney doesn't explain how staying in Syria would benefit America. He doesn't appear to consider that a relevant question. More policing in the Middle East is always better. We know that. Virtually everybody in Washington agrees. Okay, I can agree with that. Like, I do obviously think that we should be pulling out of Syria. And I side-eye the hell out of anybody who makes the argument that we shouldn't be pulling out of Syria because we were never supposed to fucking be there in the first place. Anyway, I've said my piece on that too. So, back to the monologue. Corporate tax cuts are also popular in Washington, and Romney is strongly on board with those too. His piece throws a rare compliment to Trump for cutting the corporate tax rate a year ago. Now, so far, you would be thinking, okay, this is going to be a fairly level-headed, sane monologue. You would be wrong, because this is where we're about to start going off the rails. That's not surprising. Romney spent the bulk of his business career at a firm called Bain Capital. Bain Capital all but invented what is now a familiar business strategy. Take over an existing company for a short period of time, cut costs by firing employees, run up the debt, extract the wealth, and move on, sometimes leaving retirees without their earned pensions. Romney became fantastically rich doing this. Meanwhile, a remarkable number of the companies are now bankrupt or extinct. This is the private equity model. A ruling class sees nothing wrong with it. It's how they run the country. Okay, so from the verbiage that Tucker is using here, you can see where we're starting to go with this monologue. Now, as far as Bain Capital is concerned, I mean, this was already discussed ad infinitum when he ran for president. Okay, yes, they were kind of a hostile takeover firm. It is what it is. Like, your company can't be in a position to have somebody like Bain Capital take it over unless you've already kind of fucked up in the first place. So, kind of this positioning of this, we're going to get into this a hell of a lot more later, but this idea of the elites coming in and preying on the working class is a pretty heavy theme of this monologue. Stop me if you think that you've heard this one before. Moving on. Mitt Romney refers to unwavering support for a finance-based economy and an internationalist foreign policy as the mainstream Republican view. And he's right about that. For generations, Republicans have considered it their duty to make the world safe for banking, while simultaneously prosecuting even more foreign wars. Modern Democrats generally support those goals enthusiastically. Now, I will grant you the point about the wars, but I don't know as if I would say that modern Democrats have been very enthusiastic about supporting banking. What? Okay. Let's keep going, because this is where it starts. This is the beginning of the crazy train. Like, this is the very, very, very front of the crazy train. Like, we're not even into the batshit parts of this yet. There are signs, however, that most people do not support this, and not just in America. In countries around the world, France, Brazil, Sweden, the Philippines, Germany, and many others, voters are suddenly backing candidates and ideas that would not have been imaginable just a decade ago. These are not isolated events. What you're watching is entire populations revolting against leaders who refuse to improve their lives. Okay. You see where this is going, right? You understand where this line of argument is about to go. This idea that leaders are supposed to be improving your life. Okay, let's keep going though. Something like this has been happening in our country for 3 years. Donald Trump rode a surge of popular discontent all the way to the White House. Does he understand the political revolution that he harnessed? Can he reverse the economic and cultural trends that are destroying America? Those are open questions. No, my dude, the only question that should be being asked here is that even, first of all, something that a president can do? Second of all, especially when it involves cultural trends, is this something a president even should be attempting to do? And the answer to both those questions is no. It's kind of not an open-ended question. Presidents, as much as every president likes to take responsibility for the economy, it has fuck all to do with who is in the White House, honestly. With very notable exceptions, especially with what's going on right now as far as tariffs and Trump pushing tariffs, that does affect the economy. But any president trying to take responsibility for a good economy, no, dude, no. And as far as cultural trends, no, that's a hard no from me. That has nothing to do with the government. It should not have anything to do with the government. But apparently, Tucker does not feel the same way I do about this, which is interesting because he is somebody who used to identify as a libertarian. I don't know if he does anymore, especially after this fucking monologue, but let's keep going. But they're less relevant than we think. At some point, Donald Trump will be gone. The rest of us will be gone too. The country will remain. What kind of country will it be then? How do we want our grandchildren to live? These are the only questions that matter. Okay. Anytime somebody starts bringing up, won't somebody think of the children? Or in this case, won't somebody think of the grandchildren? This tells me that you are about to make an ask of me that is either going to require me to sacrifice money or freedom. Like, that's the only time you invoke the children is when you're trying to push an agenda that is going to infringe on one or both of those things. And you're trying to make an emotional argument to do it, which that shit pisses me off like none other. Don't leave the damn kids out of this, people. Don't bring the kids into politics. Don't use them as these little props of, oh my god, the children. No, don't do that. Okay, back to the monologue. The answer used to be obvious. The overriding goal for America is more prosperity, meaning cheaper consumer goods. But is that still true? Does anyone still believe that cheaper iPhones or more Amazon deliveries of plastic garbage from China are going to make us happy? They haven't so far. A lot of Americans are drowning in stuff. Yet, drug addictions and suicides are depopulating large parts of the country. Anyone who thinks the health of a nation can be summed up in GDP is an idiot. Alright, let's back up all the way to the beginning of this paragraph. Prosperity and consumerism are two very different things, and trying to conflate the two is a little fucking sketchy. Like, prosperity is one thing, being able to buy stuff on Amazon is a completely different thing. And as far as, do iPhones make us happy? I don't know, I'm reading this shit off an iPhone right now. I'm recording it onto a MacBook Air, and it's going into a microphone and into a soundboard, and then it will go on the internet, and then you will listen to it on whatever device you're listening to it on, and I'm imagining all of this is making both of us pretty damn happy. And also, yes, getting things from Amazon makes people happy. It's opened up a whole new marketplace for people to, first off, sell their stuff that possibly would not have had the opportunity to do so, especially not on at least a national, if not a global scale. And likewise, people that now live out in BFE, where the hell ever, now have access to goods that they would not have had access to otherwise, because none of the stores around them carry them. So, yeah, these are actually good things that have improved people's lives. Like, I don't understand this conflation with consumerism being necessarily, first off, tied to prosperity, and second of all, necessarily being a bad thing. I mean, if you have too much stuff, you have too much stuff, and that's on you. Like, that's something that you have to figure out for yourself. But that's and everybody's talking about the new Netflix series now. I remember when the Marie Kondo book came out, The Art of Tidying Up, and I guess now she has a reality show on Netflix. This is what I understand. I've not read the book. I've not watched the reality series. I'm not really a fan of the idea of just savagely getting rid of everything that doesn't bring you quote unquote joy, because that's a whole nother ball of wax. And what does bring you joy, what doesn't bring you joy, whatever. That's not really the point of this conversation. But what is, and to try to bring this back to the paragraph at hand, what does give you a very, very good idea of the prosperity of any given country is the GDP. So if you are going to bring up prosperity, and bring up prosperity as something that is a goal for not only America, but any given country, and then say that the health of a nation can be summed up by the GDP as an idiot, well, okay, full health? No. But if you're bringing this up in the area of prosperity, yes, the GDP is very important. It's a very, very important indicator. Much more so than how much shit you can buy off Amazon, or whether you want to go stand in line for the new iPhone or not. Like, I don't get conflating these two things. Like, they're two things that shouldn't be conflated. And It's making me side-eye the hell out of this whole conversation. But it gets worse. It gets worse. The goal for America is both simpler and more elusive than mere prosperity. It's happiness. There are a lot of ingredients in being happy: dignity, purpose, self-control, independence. Above all, deep relationships with other people. Those are the things you want for your children. They're what our leaders should want for us and would want if they cared. Holy shit. This is where we really start getting off the rails, and this is where shit really starts getting problematic. I know Declaration of Independence, obviously, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. At no point in there or in any other document has there ever been a definition of happiness put forth, and there's a reason for that. Everybody's happy is different. My version of happiness is probably not going to be the same as your version of happiness versus your neighbor's version of happiness versus your friend's version of happiness. Like, we all have our own personal idea of what our ideal life would be. So, this idea that there is an ingredient, or like an ingredient list, I suppose, for a happiness. Oh boy, no, nope. This makes my inner libertarian spidey sense tingle, because now you're starting to get into this idea of proposing that government is responsible for your happiness, which they are absolutely not. They have no business. Don't worry about my happiness, government. I've got this. Please stay the fuck out of my life. That's all I want. And this whole idea that what our leaders should want for us, like, what the fuck kind of Orwellian shit is this? I don't think they want anything from me. I don't want them to want anything from me. It's none of their business as to how I want to live my life or what my happy looks like. And it's certainly not their job to try to engineer anything to get me there. Like, that's, please, no, stay far away from my life. Please don't try to engineer anything about my life. I don't want your interference. Please and thank you. Moving on. But our leaders don't care. We are ruled by mercenaries who feel no long-term obligation to the people they rule. They're day traders, substitute teachers. They're just passing through. They have no skin in this game, and it shows. They can't solve our problems. They don't even bother to understand our problems. No, they can't solve our problems. They have no business trying to solve our problems. What the fuck is this shit right here? What it nope. It gets worse from here. This is the start. And I really just, oh boy. Okay, let's just keep it moving. One of the biggest lies our leaders tell us is that you can separate economics from everything else that matters. Economics is a topic for public debate. Family and faith and culture, meanwhile, those are personal matters. Both parties believe this. Yeah, because that's the fucking truth. It's not... Family and faith and culture are not up for public debate. You get to arrange your family, your faith, your culture, whatever you wish to participate in the way that works out best for you, provided you are not harming anybody else. It's your business. Economics is the business of the government, and while I would very, very, very much like for them to be a hell of a lot less involved in the market than they are right now, I guess if you wanted to make an argument for government, I guess this is the part where you would, that they should be involved in the economy and economics and the market. I don't tend to agree with that, but I know everybody kind of gets off the train at their own point, and I know there are some of you out there who do feel like limited government does have a role. Okay, that's cool. Like, we're all on the same train. We all just get off at different stops. It's okay. It's cool. It's cool. I'm not mad at anybody. I don't think that it's something that one libertarian should slam another libertarian for because you happen to be small government and I happen to be no government. It's okay. We're all trying to get to the same place together. I'm okay with that. Moving on. Members of our educated upper middle classes are now the backbone of the Democratic Party, who usually describe themselves as fiscally responsible and socially moderate. In other words, functionally libertarian. They don't care how you live, as long as the bills are paid and the markets function. Somehow they don't see a connection between people's personal lives and the health of our economy, or for that matter, the country's ability to pay its bills. As far as they're concerned, they're two totally separate categories. Where the fuck are these Democrats? Where are they? I don't know them. Where are they at? Where do they live? I've not heard of them. Are they on Twitter? Or are they on the TV? Where do I find them? Where do I find these functionally libertarian Democrats? Do they only exist in Tucker's head? I'm thinking they only exist in Tucker's head. But this oh, no. Oh, okay. In the interest of not having this be hours long, let's just keep it moving. Social conservatives, meanwhile, come to the debate from the opposite perspective, and yet reach a strikingly similar conclusion. The real problem, you'll hear them say, is that the American family is collapsing. Nothing can be fixed before we fix that. Yet, like the libertarians they claim to oppose, many social conservatives also consider markets sacrosanct. The idea that families are being crushed by market forces seems never to occur to them. They refuse to consider it. Questioning markets feels like apostasy. Now, this is the part in the monologue where not only does this make my libertarian spidey sense tingle, but it's starting to make my lady spidey sense tingle. Because I'm kind of like, okay, where are you going with this exactly? And this is, like I said before, this isn't a entirely new idea. Like, Tucker isn't really being a trendsetter here. He's kind of reading the tea leaves, and much like most Fox News hosts, you're trying to give your audience what they want to hear. And this whole thing about the quote-unquote family, I feel like there's a there, and that this conversation is the subtext to another conversation that I will say Tucker gets very close to having. Like, he walks right up to the fucking line of saying what I think everybody who is making this argument is saying, but not actually point blank saying. So let's keep on moving. Both sides miss the obvious point. Culture and economics are inseparably intertwined. Certain economic systems allow families to thrive. Thriving families make market economies possible. You can't separate the two. It used to be possible to deny this. Not anymore. The evidence is now overwhelming. How do we know? Consider the inner cities. What? They're not, actually. Culture and economics are not inseparably entwined. I don't even know where you get off making that comment. Like, I don't. Anyway, moving on. 30 years ago, conservatives looked at Detroit or Newark and many other places and were horrified by what they saw. Conventional families had all but disappeared in poor neighborhoods. The majority of children were born out of wedlock. Single mothers were the rule. Crime and drugs and disorder became universal. What caused this nightmare? Liberals didn't even want to acknowledge the question. They were benefiting from the disaster in the form of reliable votes. Conservatives, though, had a ready explanation for the inner-city dysfunction, and it made sense. Big government. Decades of badly designed social programs had driven fathers from the homes and created what conservatives called a culture of poverty that trapped people in generational decline. There was truth in this, but it wasn't the whole story. How do we know? Because virtually the same thing happened decades later to an entirely different population. In many ways, rural America now looks a lot like Detroit. Okay, let's back up a little bit on those 3 paragraphs. Yes, the inner cities have their problems. Clearly, obviously, I don't think anybody can deny that. And yes, a lot of this did have to do with big government and with social welfare programs, making it not only possible but desirable to have more children, preferably out of wedlock, because of course you get more money for that. You get more in welfare, you get more in food stamp benefits, you get more in Section 8. It's economically beneficial. Like, let's just say it. It's not, I mean, it just is what it is. There's a reason why this happened. There's always a reason. And it's usually market driven. Like, if you know that if you do thing A, B, and C, you will get more money than if you just do thing A or thing A and B, then you'll do thing A, B, and C. Like, that's just common sense. So, you know that if you're a single woman and you have more babies, you will get more money from the government. And so you do that. And it becomes more culturally permissible because, I mean, it becomes the norm. Like, it's not anything that, I mean, there is a fundamentally bad thing about it there. Not because of the decimation of families, but because of this idea that if you act irresponsibly, you can get more money from the government. And that is why we need to get rid of the welfare state. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. But this is an argument I've been having with people on Twitter, but when you look at the facts of the situation, it's kind of, you can't really argue. Like, it makes economic sense for somebody to act in a certain way and not in another way. Like, this is the whole basis of the Austrian School of Economics. It's the whole basis of human action, is that humans make decisions based on what is going to best benefit them, and the women in the inner cities made that decision. Like, you can't ignore that. There's no way around that. Moving back to the monologue, because I don't have to put words in Tucker's mouth for this next point. He pretty much explicitly makes it all on his own. This is striking because rural Americans wouldn't seem to have much in common with anyone from the inner city. These groups have different cultures, different traditions, and political beliefs. Usually they have different skin colors. Rural people are white conservatives, mostly. Oh. I'm sorry, Tucker. Did you think that being poor and black was different than being poor and white? What the fuck, dude? Like, yes, the closer you get to the poverty line, the less other shit matters. The less your skin color matters. The less your political affiliation matters. All that matters at that point is that you're fucking poor. Like, that's the real line. Like, it's not race. It's not gender. It's not political affiliation. It's how close are you to the poverty line. That's the real determination of where the fuck you stand on a lot of things. If you're going to be completely honest, sometimes we have the ability to do and feel and think certain things because we are further away from the poverty line. That's the conversation that needs to be had. That's the conversation that ain't being had in this country. I mean, yeah. And making this argument that, wow, people in rural America are different than people in inner cities. No, they're fucking not. No, they're not. They're still people. They're still going to make the same decisions based on their own economic situation. No matter what their skin color is, no matter what their political affiliation is. Like, Why the fuck would you think that would be any different? Like, I don't, I, this, it's kind of like some low key ass racism right here, if we're being completely honest. Like, did Tucker think that what was happening in the inner cities was because those people were black? Did he think that poor white people would not do the same things that poor black people did? Like, I don't. I mean, you kind of you kind of told on yourself here, Tucker. But moving on. Yet the pathologies of modern rural America are familiar to anyone who visited downtown Baltimore in the 1980s. Stunning out-of-wedlock birth rates, high male unemployment, a terrifying drug epidemic, two different worlds, similar outcomes. How did this happen? You'd think our ruling class would be interested in knowing the answer. But mostly they're not. They don't have to be interested. It's easier to import foreign labor to take the place of native-born Americans who are slipping behind. Oh my god, dude, did you really? Okay, first of all, the decline in manufacturing jobs has nothing to do with importing people from someplace else. We exported the jobs. We didn't import people, you dumbass. We exported the jobs. Second of all, are you really gonna sit here and try to make the argument that, like, oh my god, it's two different worlds. How did the same thing happen? And bitch that other people don't understand why it happened? I just explained to y'all why it happened. Apparently, Tucker doesn't understand why the fuck it happened. So if you want to sit here and bitch about other people not understanding it, look in the fucking mirror. It ain't got nothing to do with race. It ain't got nothing to do with political affiliation. It has to do with poverty. That's the key. That's the one right there. Like, I don't... Oh my god. And it's... You know what? No, I'm not going to make that argument right now because I'm in somewhat of a good mood and I don't want to make the argument about what I really think this whole immigration debate is about. But Tucker kind of let the mask slip right here with this whole importing foreign-born workers. Like, that's not what the fuck happened. Everybody knows what the fuck happened. It's not like we kept the manufacturing jobs and imported a bunch of fucking Mexicans or Northern Triangle people or anybody from anywhere else to do it. Like, stop. Just stop. Alright, moving on, because we still got a long way to go and it gets worse. But Republicans now represent rural voters. They ought to be interested. Here's a big part of the answer. Male wages declined. Manufacturing, a male-dominated industry, all but disappeared over the course of a generation. All that remained in many places were the schools and the hospitals, both traditionally employers of women. In many places, women suddenly earned more than men. Now, before you applaud this as a victory for feminism, consider the effects. Study after study has shown that when men make less than women, women generally don't want to marry them. Maybe they should want to marry them, but they don't. Over big populations, this causes a drop in marriage, a spike in out-of-wedlock births, and all the familiar disasters that inevitably follow. More drug and alcohol use, higher incarceration rates, fewer families formed in the next generation. What the fuck are you talking about? I don't even know where to start with this. I guess backing up to the first paragraph that I said, yeah, that's the point that I just made. It's not that foreign-born workers came in here and took people's jobs. The manufacturing jobs left. Which, think whatever you want to think about that. I mean, globalization is what it is. You're not putting that toothpaste back in the tube. I really wish politicians would quit lying about that. Anywho. But this whole paragraph here about women and who they do and do not marry, and apparently who they do and do not have babies with. Okay, if I want to keep with the logic of what Tucker just said, which I don't. I mean, it's bullshit, if we're being completely honest. You mean to tell me that women are having babies with men that they don't want to marry? That makes no fucking sense. Marriage is undoable. You can get divorced from somebody. You can't unhave a baby with somebody. That's life right there. Like, there's no getting around that. So what the fuck is this argument that he's trying to make? What? Like, so much, from here on out, so much of this is what the actual fuck argument are you trying to make, dude? And also saying that, I guess, out of wedlock births lead to drug and alcohol abuse and higher incarceration rates and fewer families formed in the next generation. Like, what? What? I'm at a loss. I literally don't understand this argument at all. What the fuck are you trying to say? I don't get it. But moving on. This isn't speculation. This is not propaganda from the evangelicals. It's social science. We know it's true. Rich people know it best of all. That's why they get married before they have kids. That model works, but increasingly, marriage is a luxury only the affluent in America can afford. Okay, ignoring all of the weirdness about that paragraph, here's an argument that I don't understand, and that is this idea that marriage is a luxury that only rich Americans can afford. Isn't your whole shtick supposed to be that poor people, or at least working class people, should be getting married to provide stable households for their future kids? What is this idea that marriage is a luxury that only the affluent in America can afford? I don't get this argument on any level. I don't understand what people mean when they say that. I don't get it. Can somebody explain it to me? Anyway, gotta keep moving because this is getting long and we still have a lot of road to go. And yet, and here's the bewildering and infuriating part, those very same affluent married people, the ones making virtually all the decisions in our society, are doing pretty much nothing to help the people below them get and stay married. Rich people are happy to fight malaria in Congo, but working to raise men's wages in Dayton or Detroit? That's crazy. This is negligence on a massive scale. Both parties ignore the crisis in marriage. Our mindless cultural leaders act like it's still 1961, and the biggest problem Americans' families face is that sexism is preventing millions of housewives from becoming investment bankers or Facebook executives. Okay. Now we're starting to get to the point that I was making before, that I feel like this particular conversation about marriage and families and culture is a subtext for a different conversation that people want to have but are not having. And we're starting to touch on that here. And that's this idea of, well, you goddamn ladies and you goddamn careers. Why aren't you staying home and taking care of babies? Why you want to go in the workforce? Why you want to do that? And before you think I'm reading a little too much into that, let's go ahead and just this next paragraph, this one right fucking here. For our ruling class, more investment banking is always the answer. They teach us it's more virtuous to devote your life to some soulless corporation than it is to raise your own kids. Let's not play. That ain't directed towards men. That's directed towards women. And the idea that women work outside the house. Now, if you choose of your own free will and you have a partner who is willing to also engage in this in their own free will, that you, as a woman, stay home, you have children, you raise them, you're a housewife, cool. Do you. That's great. I am not down for anybody who wants to shame anybody for making a decision about their own life. I'm not with it when people want to shame trad women for voluntarily engaging in that life because that's what they want to do. I'm not down for anybody trying to shame career women because that's what they voluntarily chose to do and that's what they want to do with their life. No, that's And to me, that is a lot of this particular conversation about families and culture and children, and it's just that's he came real close to saying the quiet part out loud. Real fucking close. I'm not okay with it. Like I said, you choose the life that you want to live. And you should be able to do it free of judgment. And that's it. If you want to stay home and have babies and raise them, kick ass. If you want to go out in the world and you want to have a career and you want to do things, kick ass. Do it. Yeah, this is why I have a big problem with this whole conversation, because it's a lot of it seems to be directed towards women making choices to be in the workforce. Maybe I'm reading too far into it. Maybe I'm not. Moving on into the monologue. Sheryl Sandberg of Facebook wrote an entire book about this. Sandberg explained that our first duty is to shareholders, above our own children. No surprise there. Sandberg herself is one of America's biggest shareholders. Propaganda like this has made her rich. What's remarkable is how the rest of us responded to it. We didn't question why Sandberg was saying this. We didn't laugh in her face at the pure absurdity of it. Our corporate culture celebrated Sandberg as the leader of a liberation movement. Her book became a bestseller. Lean in. As if putting a corporation first is empowerment. It is not. It is bondage. Republicans should say so. Again, if you think for a hot damn second that wasn't directed at women going out into the workforce, okay, do you. But it's pretty fucking clear to me who that whole section of that monologue was directed towards. And you can go fuck yourself with that. Honestly, get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. You do not get to dictate what other people do with their lives. You don't get to dictate what women do with their lives. That was the whole fucking point of first wave feminism, was that women get to have a choice as to how they want to live their lives. If they don't want to stay home and be moms, then they fucking don't. If they do, fine, then they do. It's a goddamn choice. That's the point. Now, here comes the part of the monologue where Tucker starts doing some hard pivots that I don't entirely understand. Because we just went from that whole section right there to this whole section right here. They should also speak out against the ugliest parts of our financial system. Not all commerce is good. Why is it defensible to loan people money they can't possibly repay? Or charge them interest that impoverishes them? Payday loan outlets in poor neighborhoods collect 400% annual interest. We're okay with that? We shouldn't be. Libertarians tell us that's how markets work. Consenting adults make voluntary decisions about how to live their lives. Okay, but it's also disgusting. If you care about America, you ought to oppose the exploitation of Americans, whether it's happening in the inner cities or on Wall Street. Okay. How the fuck did we just get the payday loans? That, like, I make some hard pivots sometimes, but that is a hard fucking pivot right there. And, yes, payday loans suck. They charge high interest rates, although I'm going to need to see some data on this 400% annual interest, because I don't know of any state that doesn't have usury laws on the books to try to minimize the amount of interest that a payday loan can pay. They exist for a reason, though. Like, if your options are payday loan or I can't buy food, then payday loan. Like, it's kind of a no-brainer. And if you got rid of the legitimate payday loan industry, it's not like all of a sudden people are going to just, like, magically not have this particular need. You're just going to push it out onto the black market where there's not going to be any regulation. And you're going to have loan sharks who are going to charge whatever the fuck they charge and are not going to be very nice about it when you can't pay your loan off. Like, the payday loan industry did not invent payday loans. Like, they codified it, they made it a little more legit, and now you can actually have some kind of oversight over it, versus back when we just had loan sharks where it's like, okay, well, either you pay me whatever the fuck I'm telling you to pay me, or I'll break your knees, or I'll break your arms, or I'll just kill you. Like, it's just, oh my god. And the second graph here. This is a classic example of where everything before the butt can be safely regarded. Because that, no. Consenting adults making voluntary decisions about how they live their lives. Full fucking stop. That's it. Nope. Stop there. Just stop there. And he used the E word. Exploitation. Now, circling back to what I was alluding to at the beginning of when I was talking about this monologue. So what you're telling me is that the working class is being exploited by the elites, and that somebody should do something about that. Where the hell have I heard that one before? Oh. Yeah, it's pretty much classic Marxism. So you're now espousing Marxism in the guise of populism, I guess, and I suppose now would be a good time to have this conversation. I mean, people look at populism right now like it is an ideology in and of itself. It is not. It's a vehicle for an ideology. Like, populism is the car. And you can have anybody behind the wheel that you want. You can have left-wing populism. You can have right-wing populism. I'm pretty sure if I sat down and thought about it long enough, I could come up with libertarian populism. That's what is going on here. Like, you're trying to make a populist argument, and I don't... Like, did you think this one through, dude? Like, did you really sit down and think about what the fuck you were saying before you said it? Because this is the exact kind of class warfare that Marx advocated in order to bring about socialism. That you, as a working class, are being exploited by the elites. That you, the proletariat, are being exploited by the bourgeoisie, and that you should rise up against these people and do something about it. This kills me. That's the part that really kills me about this one, is like you're straight up espousing Marxism, and I don't know if he realizes that's what he's doing, but it's what he's doing. Now, again, for another hard-ass pivot, because we're going to move on to a topic that had nothing to do with the topic previous to it. And actually looking at this paragraph, I'm going to go ahead and fix some of their syntax that I think they screwed up when they did this transcription, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. And by the way, if you really loved your fellow Americans, as our leaders should, it would break your heart to see them high all the time. Which they are. A huge number of our kids, especially our boys, are smoking weed constantly. You may not realize this because new technology has made it odorless, but it's everywhere. The odorless weed is a goddamn epidemic, y'all. What the fuck is this? I'm sorry, where is this odorless weed? Like, does Tucker live in some magical world where people are able to vape THC on a regular basis? And if so, where is it and how do I fucking live there? Because that is not the norm at all, actually. But what? Okay. But to be serious and to, well, actually this, drug use amongst teenagers, boys and girls, is dropping due to many reasons that are kind of beyond the scope of this conversation. But yeah, the idea that drug use is spiking amongst teenagers, no, the data does not bear that out at all. Like I said, it's actually dropping. And just to go ahead and make this argument before Tucker gets there, in places where weed has either been decrimmed or completely legalized, use amongst teenagers is either flatlined or dropped since laws have changed. So this isn't like there's some kind of fucking epidemic where teenagers are just going buck wild and doing all the weed because it's like either decriminalized or legalized in various places in the country. And yes, it is not legal everywhere in the country, Tucker. This didn't happen yet. But moving on, because he's not done with this point. Also, I'm just reading back on it. The odorless weed. Technology has not made the weed odorless. If anything, technology has made the weed a little more dank than it was back in the day. But moving on. And that's not an accident. Once our leaders understood they can get rich from marijuana, marijuana became ubiquitous. In many places, tax-hungry politicians have legalized or decriminalized it. Former Speaker of the House John Boehner now lobbies for the marijuana industry. His fellow Republicans seem fine with that. Oh, it's better for you than alcohol, they tell us. Maybe. Who cares? Talk about missing the point. Try having dinner with a 19-year-old who's been smoking weed. The life is gone. Passive, flat, trapped in their own heads. Do you want that for your kids? Of course not. Then why are our leaders pushing it on us? You know the reason. Because they don't care about us. Okay. Rolling this back a little bit. Tax-hungry politicians are not the reason why weed has been legalized or decriminalized where it has been legalized or decriminalized. It's been through voter initiatives. It's been through the ballot. It's not been because politicians decided it was going to be fucking legal. That didn't happen. I don't know where the hell he's getting that idea. The only state that has made that decision, not through ballot, but through state legislature, is Virginia. That's it. Every other state, every other county, every other municipality, every other place that has made a decision on weed has been through voter ballots and voter initiatives. So this idea that tax-hungry politicians are pushing weed on people, that's not even remotely close to the reality of the situation. The reality is people want legal weed. So people are voting for legal weed. If you don't like it, you can not like it all you fucking want, but don't blame it on anybody else. Second of all, Boehner can go advocate for whatever he wants. Whatever. He's a private citizen now. If he wants to go be part of a weed lobby, go be part of a fucking weed lobby. Whatever. Don't care. Third point. What is this about having dinner with high 19-year-olds? Because in every place where weed has been decriminalized or legalized, it has also been tied to the age where one can buy alcohol, which is 21. So if you're having dinner with a stoned-ass 19-year-old, it's about as legal as having dinner with a drunk 19-year-old, which means it ain't. And I have my own personal views on that. Like, I feel if you're an adult at 18, you should be able to drink at 18. You should be able to buy weed legally wherever you can at 18. But as it stands, that's not the reality of the situation. So I can't with the fucking fear-mongering. I cannot. Especially on the topic of weed. And yes, I know, I am that libertarian. But honestly, can we just please have an honest goddamn discussion about weed? Like, it's... Okay, what's going to happen? This 19-year-old is going to, I don't know, go back for seconds? And what is this idea? Like, has Tucker ever been high? I wonder if Tucker has ever been high. Because this is not passive and flat and trapped in your own head is not the kind of high I've ever experienced on weed. I don't know about you guys. I don't. I'm not gonna ascribe any kind of other experiences to anybody else, but that ain't my experience. I'm just saying. But and also kind of going back to this idea that there's just high people everywhere. Everybody is stoned everywhere. What the fuck is this? I just honest conversations. That's all I'm asking people. Anyway, moving back to the monologue. When you care about people, you do your best to treat them fairly. Our leaders don't even try. They hand out jobs and contracts and scholarships and slots at prestigious universities based purely on how we look. There's nothing less fair than that, though our tax code comes close. Under our current system, an American who works for a salary pays about twice the tax rate as someone who is living off inherited money and doesn't work at all. We tax capital at half of what we tax labor. It's a sweet deal if you work in finance, as many of our rich people do. Okay. Going back, I'm assuming he's talking about affirmative action when he says handing out various jobs and scholarships, blah, 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 based on how we look. I'm assuming he's going with the affirmative action argument. I mean, I don't agree with that either. I just think everybody should just be thrown in a big pot. Everybody gets a number, and whoever makes it in, makes it in. If you don't, you don't, whatever. But this idea under the tax system that it's somehow unfair that people who work and get a paycheck get taxed more than people who live off an inheritance. Okay, are you really going to deadass ignore the fact that the people who are living off of an inheritance are living off of money that was already taxed once before and really shouldn't be taxed again? Like, really, dude? Are you going to make that argument? Because it's a bullshit argument. Like, if you've already had this sum of money right here, and it's been taxed once before, why the fuck should it be taxed again? That makes no damn sense. None. None whatsoever. Unless you just basically want to make the classist argument that rich people are somehow getting a better deal than working class people. Blah, 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 blah. Whatever. No, that's not how this works. Back to the monologue. In 2010, for example, Mitt Romney made about $22 million in investment income. He paid an effective federal tax rate of 14%. For normal upper-middle-class wage earners, the federal tax rate is nearly 40%. No wonder Mitt Romney supports the status quo. But for everyone else, it's infuriating. I already explained this. Moving on. Our leaders rarely mention any of this. They tell us that our multi-tiered tax code is based on the principles of the free market. Please. It's based on laws that Congress passed, laws that companies lobbied for in order to increase their economic advantage. It worked well for those people. It did increase their economic advantages. But for everyone else, it came at a big cost. Unfairness is profoundly divisive. When you favor one child over another, your kids don't hate you. They hate each other. Now, this may be the most intellectually dishonest/lazy part of this whole monologue. Conflating corporate tax rates to personal income tax rates no, you're comparing apples to oranges. And yes, all taxation is bullshit. Let's go ahead and get that out of the way. But comparing the breaks that companies have lobbied for to, like, directly to what you personally pay in income taxes, it's just, that's not even a conversation that needs to be had. Honestly, it's classism. Like, there's just nothing else to call that. It's straight fucking Marxist classism. You're making that argument. Don't make that fucking argument. That's all I'm saying. I don't, this is just so, oh my god. Anyway, we're going to skip forward a little bit because the rest of this is just more of the same pablum of trying to be some kind of right-wing populist and be like, the elites are out to get you. Which, I mean, I get it. Tucker has to pander to his audience because, I mean, that's your job when you're on television and you have a show and you do numbers and you have an audience. You have to keep your audience happy. I get audience capture. But just, if you're going to do it, try to be at least intellectually honest about it. Don't do this shit right here. And I'm scrolling forward while I'm ranting at you guys, and it's just, ooh. Anyway, let's see. Here we go. But first, Republican leaders will have to acknowledge that market capitalism is not a religion. Market capitalism is a tool, like a staple gun or a toaster. You have to be a fool to worship it. Our system was created by human beings for the benefit of human beings. We do not exist to serve markets. Just the opposite. Any economic system that weakens and destroys families is not worth having. A system like that is the enemy of a healthy society. Really? Really? Are you really going to pretend like we have a free market economy right now? Are you going... Oh my god. Like, no. Yes, the market is a tool. Yes, the market exists to serve us. Can we possibly fucking get to that at some point in my lifetime? Because we ain't there right now. Are you really going to ignore all of the government intervention in the market that has created the situation that we have, while still somehow, veiled as it is, calling for elected politicians to do something about the market? Are you really? Are you going to fucking make that argument? That is just the most bullshit. Oh no. No. What the government needs to be doing is getting the fuck out of the market, not getting further into the market to try to manipulate it to help this group or that group or any other group. No, get the fuck out. Let the market serve the people unfettered. Let it live. Stop trying to game the system to help other people. That's how we fucking got here in the first place. Stop it. Stop asking for more of what fucked the system in the first place. And here is where it's like Tucker just bent the political horseshoe. Now, I've explained this before, the idea of political horseshoe theory, and that is that the political spectrum is not a linear line where the left and the right are on opposite sides of the spectrum and the center is in the middle. It's a horseshoe where the far left and the far right are on the other sides, like one side of the horseshoe, the other side of the horseshoe, and the center is in the middle, which I think is a much better representation of where we are now politically, because it shows that the center is much further away from the far right and the far left than it is from anything else, and that the far right and the far left are much closer to each other than they would ever care to admit. And when I say far left and far right, I'm not saying like, I'm not using far right as an adjective for the alt-right, and I'm not using far left as an adjective for like Antifa. I mean, like, far left would be AOC and far right would be Tucker right now. Like, they're basically, you're advocating for the same shit right now. And you think you're on different sides of the spectrum, you're really not. You're really fucking not. You're way closer to each other and way further away from where you need to be than a linear line would really represent. So, going ahead, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Internalizing all this will not be easy for Republican leaders. They'll have to unlearn decades of bumper sticker talking points and corporate propaganda. They'll likely lose donors in the process. They'll be criticized. Libertarians are sure to call any deviation from market fundamentalism as a form of socialism. That's a lie. Socialism is a disaster. It doesn't work. It's what we should be working desperately to avoid. But socialism is exactly what we're going to get, and very soon, unless a group of responsible people in our political system reforms the American economy in a way that protects normal people. If you want to put America first, you've got to put its families first. Alright, let me back up and say a certain sentence again so that you can understand the inherent contradictions in the fucking sentence. But socialism is exactly what we're going to get, and very soon, unless a group of responsible people in our political system reforms the American economy in a way that protects normal people. Bitch, that's socialism. What the fuck did you think socialism was? It's central planning. It's the government interfering in the economy to try to make it fair and just for everybody. So, what you're advocating for is socialism. Like, you may not want to say it. You may sit here and pay lip service to the fact that socialism is a disaster, but what you're advocating for is socialism. Like, what in the actual fuck? Did you not think about the words before they came out of your mouth? I can't with this fucking monologue. But the monologue is done. We made it through. And obviously I have shared all of my emotions about the monologue. So, but I mean, it's indicative of this certain strain of right-wing populism that I'm seeing coming out that seems to be very much pro-government intervention, seems to be very pro-family, which seems to also be very anti-women not being at home, taking care of babies, which obviously I have a problem with. But it's the whole thing is just anti-liberty, it's anti-freedom, it's asking for the government to come in and do something and fix it, when what we really need to be focusing on is getting the government out of the market, getting them away from the market, because that's what's going to fix it. Not more government intervention, less government intervention. Get out, get out, go, buy government, just stay shut down. Although I know the government shutdown is not the libertarian utopia, because people are still going to get paid, stuff's still happening, whatever. I get it, I know, don't at me on it. But yeah, it's just this, this is a strain of right-wing populism that I'm seeing starting to take hold, and seeing Tucker do a whole monologue on this particular topic worries me a bit, because it's a little too close to classism for me. It's a little too close to Marxism for me. And while you will never, ever, ever get anybody on the right to ever cop to that, it's what it is. Like, if you know anything about Marxism, if you know anything about how classism was presented, this is it. This is exactly what it is. So, anyway, on that point, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, because this has already gone on way longer than I planned on it to. So, if you did make it this far, as always, thank you. And if you did like this, please rate, comment, and subscribe. You can find me on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, and YouTube. Take care, and until next time.